Russell Brand, Narcissist, Part 2. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, continuing the examination of Russell Brand. The Times investigation continued by reporting that as her taxi approached Russell Brand's home, Alice, not her real name, remembers the driver begging her to not go inside. Recognizing the destination, he had started to ask questions. Alice admitted she was 16 and still in school. She says the driver replied that his daughter was the same age and entreated Alice, "Please, I'm asking you not to go in there. You could be my little girl, and I would want someone to do this for her." He offered to take her home without charge, but Alice insisted she was fine. He had just such a sad look in his eyes, she recalls. Alice realizes that she wasn't fine. During a relationship that lasted for about 3 months, when Brand was a BBC radio presenter, she says that he referred to her as the child objectification, and alleges that he became increasingly controlling and then emotionally and sexually abusive. Brand, then 30, sent a car to her secondary school to take her out of lessons and to his home. This demonstrates a lack of boundary recognition by interrupting her schooling. It also shows an absence of emotional empathy and a sense of entitlement. He asked her to save his name in her phone as Carly to deceive her parents. Brand's management knew that he had a teenage girlfriend and advised him not to be seen with her in public, she says. Now, it's worth emphasizing that this is not illegal. In the United Kingdom, although there's a 14-year age difference between the two of them, there is nothing wrong with having such an age difference. Furthermore, she is of the age to provide consent to engage in sexual activity, and therefore no crime would be committed as a consequence of consensual sexual activity between the two of them. It is not the fact of her being 16 and engaging in sexual activity with Russell Brand that is necessarily the issue, but rather the fact that he has been taking her out of school, that he has been causing to her engage in a deception. Alice alleges that Brand once forced his penis down her throat, making her choke, and that after trying to push him off, he only stopped after she hit him in the stomach. She says she was visibly upset after the incident. If this is accurate, this demonstrates an absence of emotional empathy, a sexual assault showing a sense of entitlement. Brand made his name in comedy in the early 2000s and also achieved the status of London's most lascivious Lothario. After he gave up drugs in 2002, taking drugs shows a lack of accountability and a sense of entitlement, but then, of course, he has refrained from taking them, which then suggests that he is able to assert some form of accountability for his behaviour. Brand then filled that void with sex. Is it the case, however, that drugs were providing a form of fuel, and that shifted towards utilising more sex to obtain that fuel? In 2005, he received treatment for sex addiction at a clinic in the United States. As I mentioned previously, sex addiction is just simply a cover-up for the behaviour of a narcissist. His womanizing ways, he once said he could sleep with 80 women in a month, which is either a boast or, if accurate, shows hypersexual behaviour, saw him crowned Shagger of the Year by The Sun 3 times. Accordingly, it isn't the case of it just being a one-off, but this shows repeated, extensive sexual relations, and having many intimate partners is an indicator of a narcissist. Again, there's no crime being committed in having lots of sexual partners, but this isn't about determining whether he's a criminal, it's about determining what he is and if he's a narcissist. He had relationships with some of the world's most beautiful women, including Kate Moss, and he married the pop star Katy Perry in 2010. They divorced in 2012. Short relationship, which again suggests possibly the presence of a narcissist in the dynamic. When Alice met Brand in 2006, he was becoming a household name as the host of Channel 4's Big Brother's Big Mouth and a BBC radio presenter. She was 16, recovering from an eating disorder, and had never had a boyfriend. This suggests vulnerability. He approached her in Leicester Square after she had been shopping at Topshop at Oxford Circus, and he had been working at a nearby studio. Alice recognised him from television and had previously seen him do stand-up. He took my shopping bags from me, which was quite disarming, and proceeded to go through my purchases and critique them. Sense of entitlement, lack of boundary recognition. And then he took one dress out and said to me, "You're going to wear this on our date this week," she recalls. Presumptive, ordering around, sense of entitlement. Brand asked her to dinner, and she later told her mother, who made Alice text Brand to tell him her age, assuming it would put him off. It didn't. Sense of entitlement. Lack of accountability for behaviours. Alice's mother was very upset, but did not feel she could control who her daughter met. "I remember wearing a red wiggle dress and big platform shoes and had my hair blown out and was wearing makeup," Alice now remembers, "but I didn't look like a woman by any means. I was a child that had got dressed up for dinner." On their first date, she claims Brand asked her as soon as they met to confirm she was definitely 16, saying, "I don't give a fuck if you're 12. I need to know where I stand legally." During the earlier stages of their relationship, Alice says Brand was very charming and very attentive, love bombing, sending her verbose messages, repeated sending of messages, both wordy, grandiosity, and hoovering behaviours. She remembers feeling giddy and special. Before the first time they had sex, Alice says she told him she was a virgin and claims he was instantly aroused. He was like, "Oh my God, my baby," and picked me up and cradled me in his arms like a child and was stroking my hair. He's like, "You're like my little dolly," objectification. She claims he became preoccupied with her being innocent and pure. She claims that there was a large mirror on the wall, and she remembers during sex he raised his arm above his head like this power stance, like he was conquering something. The fact that there was a large mirror on the wall speaks to his vanity, and the fact that he raised his arm above his head during sex as if he's conquering demonstrates the manifestation of the dynamic between him and the woman. Over the following weeks, Brand referred to her as the child, objectification, asked her to read Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, and coached her on what to say to her parents when he wanted to see her, assertion of control. Although Alice was over the age of consent in the United Kingdom, she and a family member who has also spoken to the Sunday Times to corroborate her story both describe Brand's behaviour as grooming, assertion of control through love bombing. Alice says he suggested how she could deceive her parents into allowing her to visit him, and claims that he gave her scripts on how to lie to them. She also alleges that he told her not to trust her friends, and that they would all be looking to make money from it if she revealed she was seeing him. It was isolating, she says. As I've explained to you elsewhere, the isolation that a narcissist engages in is done to make the primary object easier to control. Russell engaged in the behaviours of a groomer looking back, but I didn't even know what that was then or what that looked like, she says. Alice recalls that Brand told her never to send him sexual images, and she believed that was because of her age. It might be, of course, that he's exhibiting some emotional empathy for her by suggesting that that ought to be the case, or might it instead that he's looking to protect himself, and it's a form of assertion of control. Alice accuses Brand of being controlling. She says that he once ran a bath for her and demanded that she stay in it while he went out for about an hour, assertion of control. Another time, Alice alleges that Brand removed the condom during sex without her knowing, lack of accountability. When he invited her over on his 31st birthday, Alice's mother insisted on driving her, to emphasise to him that this was a girl with loving parents. When Alice's mother went to meet Brand on the doorstep, Alice says that he blocked the door and leant down and kissed my mother on the mouth, lack of boundary recognition, assertion of control. She says that afterwards her mother was very, very upset at Brand's behaviour and pleaded with Alice to come home with her, but Alice chose to stay. Towards the end of the relationship, Alice says that Brand sexually assaulted her. She says, "I was sat up in the bed against the headboard and he forced his penis down my throat and I couldn't breathe. It was just choking me and I couldn't breathe. And I was pushing him away and he wasn't backing off at all." She says, "I ended up having to punch him really hard in the stomach to get him off. I was crying and he said, 'Oh, I only wanted to see your mascara run anyway.'" flippancy, lack of emotional empathy. Then I knew at that point that he didn't care about hurting me physically or emotionally. It shouldn't take you having to punch someone and to wind them to get them off you. It shouldn't be a physical fight. As Alice lay on one side of the bed after the attack, she alleges that he climbed on top of her, held open her mouth and drooled into it. Lack of boundary recognition. I was gagging and trying to fight him off me, but he's lying on top of me, so I can't, she alleges. My limbs are trapped underneath him, and I just thought, why are you doing this? It can't even be any sexual gratification in this. And then he held my mouth shut and made me swallow it, so I was just gagging and crying. Devaluing behaviour, assertion of control. The relationship ended when Brand invited her over one day and she arrived to find another woman in his bed. I was so angry and I said to him, why would you do this to me? This is so humiliating. Triangulation, devaluation, infidelity. Alice has decided to speak out because she now believes that she was too young to be able to consent to a relationship with an adult man and that the law should be changed to protect those under 18. My mum still feels like she failed me in some way in allowing this to happen. But she had no recourse at all, she says. It shouldn't be legal for a 16-year-old to have a relationship with a man in their 30s. There should be something in place to protect children. I think he was very skillful in the start of making his identity be, I'm the womanizer, I'm a sex addict, I'm inappropriate, but it's all just a joke, it's funny. Alice claims it's a smokescreen for a lot more of his dark behaviour. It does appear, if these recollections are correct, that there's much of the way that Brand behaves in terms of putting it all out there and almost hiding in plain sight. During the early years of Brand's TV career as a Channel 4 presenter, there were repeated incidents which raised questions about his interactions with young women while working for them. TV researchers and runners who worked on Channel 4 shows during this period alleged that Brand would get staff to approach young female audience members so he could meet them after filming. Use of coterie members, perhaps. Two former crew members working on Big Brother's E-Forum, a live spin-off debate show presented by Brand that would become Big Brother's Big Mouth, separately claimed this made them feel like they were working as a pimp for Brand. One says she remembered women calling her in tears after feeling they had been treated poorly by Brand, alleged devaluing behaviour. Another claims there were occasions she had to collect Brand from a hotel room, and he appeared in his underwear, lack of boundary recognition, and suggested having a quickie, assertion of control through sex, and she could not tell if he was joking or not. She says Brand's behaviour was widely discussed by those working on the TV set. One runner, Rachel, who was 24 at the time, says she once walked into Brand's dressing room and claims he flashed his penis at her, sense of entitlement, lack of boundary recognition. She alleges that Brand insinuated that she could give him oral sex. She was shocked and refused. She felt unable to tell anybody about what had happened and was worried that if she complained she would lose her job. She says Brand continued to pursue her, and sometime after he asked her to visit his flat. When she arrived, they kissed and had sex. Early sexual interaction, sense of entitlement. They began a relationship, but she alleges he told her to keep it a complete secret. She claims Brand told her that he had it written into his contract that he wasn't allowed to have any sexual contact with anyone working on Big Brother. Endemol said they have reviewed the contract and Brand did not have a clause pertaining to sexual relationships. Lie. A researcher claims Brand's behaviour while working on E-Forum and Big Brother's Big Mouth was reported to production managers at Endemol, the company commissioned by Channel 4 to produce the shows. They alleged that they complained about Brand pursuing audience members for sex, but claims their concerns were dismissed. The researcher remembers being told by a talent manager, "It's what happens with the talent. Boys will be boys. It's not a big deal." A spokesman for Banijay UK, which bought Endemol in 2020, said it had reviewed files and correspondence and could find no record of issues about Brand being raised formally or discussed with Endemol. It said, "We take our duty of care to our cast, crew and staff extremely seriously. While the legacy company Endemol did have a code of conduct, support policies and escalation procedures in place during the period in question, they were not as robust as our current processes. We are sorry these women did not feel supported and protected while working on these productions, and in light of these serious allegations, encourage them to contact us in confidence." Brand would regularly have sex with women he met at events. Hypersexualization, sense of entitlement, method of assertion of control. Two, who went back to his home on separate occasions, claim he became threatening and shouted at them, devaluing behaviour. nullification of threat to control, when they refused to have intercourse with him. One left his home in tears. Helen Berger, who worked as Brand's personal assistant in 2006, said that during her interview for the job, she told one of his managers that she had a girlfriend. The manager later told her that her being gay was seen as a plus for the job. She believes the manager wanted to make sure that I would be safe. He just wanted a purely platonic situation. Berger says that Brand was a narcissist and would often only wear underwear while she worked. Lack of boundary recognition, sense of entitlement. She also remembers Brand openly showing his friends intimate pictures of women. Sense of entitlement. Once, while in Edinburgh for the festival in a bar, she saw Brand showing pictures like these to friends. Triangulation. She says, I leant in. As he's going through these pictures, he gets to a picture of somebody I knew. It did something to me. It made me feel really sick to my stomach. These are women who aren't expecting to be shown to the dude's friends. Liliana Dalla Piana, a highly experienced celebrity assistant who worked for Brand between December 2007 and January 2008, says that she believes she was hired by his managers because she was nearer to his mother's age than his. She recalls that at her interview, Brand said that he liked to walk around with nothing on. Lack of accountability, sense of entitlement, lack of boundary recognition, or sometimes just a long caftan with nothing underneath. Dalla Piana remembers replying, I've got a son who's older than you. I've seen it all. Brand would go on to be hired by the BBC, first on BBC Six Music in April 2006, before he was moved to Radio 2 that November. Next came Saxgate. He often courted controversy, culminating in the Saxgate scandal. In October 2008, Brand and his co-presenter Jonathan Ross made prank calls to the actor Andrew Sachs, who had played Manuel in Fawlty Towers, leaving a lewd message on his answer phone. Brand hinted at a relationship with Sachs's granddaughter, Georgina Bailey. Triangulation, provocation, lack of accountability, absence of emotional empathy. Prompting Ross to declare, he fucked your granddaughter, which Sachs had not known about. When the scandal emerged, Gordon Brown, the then Prime Minister, criticised the broadcast, and both Brand and the station's controller Leslie Douglas resigned from the BBC, which was fined £150,000 by Ofcom. The BBC admitted that editorial standards had been broken. More evidence that comes from the Times investigation. We'll be looking at more of the evidence in part 3 to make a determination as to what Russell Brand is. Join me there.